Minimalism is the movement that encourages you to live with less. Less stuff, less possessions, less clutter, and find more joy and more time to focus on what matters. So, what is minimalish? It's the grace-filled way of doing the same thing. Sustainable, realistic minimalism that actually makes sense for your life. The Minimalish Podcast is here to help you make life lighter, realistically. I'm your host, Desiree, and my passion is to help you create room for what matters to you by cutting the clutter and excess stuff in your home and your life. It's not just about decluttering and having a tidy home, but about how having less stuff will give you more time and more space to focus on creating the life you actually want to live. We'll talk about topics of minimalism, motherhood, simple, intentional living, and everything in between here on the show each week. Let's walk towards simple together. Hey friend, just popping in to let you know, you might notice that the podcast has gone through a couple of name changes along the way. When the podcast was brand new, it started as something pretty different than it is now, but the thing is that the topics were very similar. So I've kept these older episodes around here because I still really think that they're valuable, and I hope you enjoy them. So without further ado, let's get to this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey friend, welcome to the Simply Enough show. If you've listened before, welcome back, and if you are new to listening to this show, welcome. I am so excited that you are listening in to today's episode. I am actually releasing my podcast on a new day. So if you have listened before, just know that the podcast will be out on Thursdays now. And there's really nothing to this change other than it's just a day that works better for my family and I. It gives me more time throughout the week to get everything done that I need to for this show before it releases. Today, I have a super exciting episode to share with you. I am talking to Manda Carpenter, a writer and blogger who I've personally followed for a long time. If you don't know who she is, you should. But just to give you a background, Manda describes herself like this. She's a beloved child of God, wife to her favorite person, foster mom, and a total morning person. She's at her best before 9 p.m., which I can definitely relate to, especially since having Gemma. She makes her home in Chicago, and although she didn't say this herself, I'll say it for her. She's a super talented writer, which is how I initially was introduced to her. I followed Amanda initially through her blog a few years ago, and I've loved reading her transparent writing. She's an extremely encouraging, honest person, and I think you'll agree with all of this after you listen to our conversation today. We talk about her experience as a foster mom, the struggles and joy that has come from that journey, and we talk about a career change that she went through and how she has learned to combat stress, overthinking, and anxiety that can come along with big changes like this. We talk a little bit about her writing too and her really awesome movement that she started, Letters of Encouragement. Manda also tells us the story behind why she goes by Manda instead of Amanda. I know you all are going to love this interview and there's so much good stuff in it, so let's just jump right in. Here's my conversation with Manda. Hi, Manda. Thank you so much for coming on today, for being on the show. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I think our listeners are really going to enjoy hearing your story. So first, before we dive in, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, your family, anything like that.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I was super excited. I don't have a podcast, but I love listening to podcasts and I love sharing my story. So it's kind of fun when someone asks me to be on there. So thank you. Just a little bit about me for someone who might not know. My name is Amanda, but I go by Manda. I dropped the first A simply because there's another Amanda Carpenter out in the world who works for like CNN and she's like big time. And so I didn't want to deal with like competing on Google and trying to be like, I write, hear my voice over this already like famous person. And also a lot of my close friends just call me Manda. So just a little background on why the name thing. I live in Chicago with my husband and we've been married for 3.5 years and we became foster parents a little over a year ago now. And so we don't have any biological children, but we when people say like, do you have kids? It's kind of a weird, wonky, like, yes, no, like, because at times there's no kids living with us. And then there's most of the time there are. Like right now we have an 8-year-old with us. And a few months back, we had twin 3-year-olds for quite a while. So
wow,
it's kind of a revolving door in terms of family. And I work currently at a church here in the West Loop of Chicago. I do first impressions and connections. And so I never thought I would work at a church. I was formerly a teacher. I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit since I think you and I have that in common. But yeah, that's just a little bit about who I am and my family.
Awesome. And talk a little bit about your writing, because that's how I found you probably a couple years ago. I found your blog, and you write so beautifully. So talk about that. How long have you been writing? Has it been something you've always done, or?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I appreciate that because, as a writer or a creative in general, I think sometimes we have such a hard time like promoting ourselves, like it feels yucky and like we don't want to do that. But at the same time, it's like if you have a gift or a desire or a passion and you write something, like I'll be the first to admit, like for a while I felt so weird putting writing out there and telling people like, hey, I wrote this thing, go read this thing. But at the same time, I felt like, well, if I am writing this to help people or I want it to help people and speak to them, why would I not share it with them? So I kind of had to get over that. But to back up a little bit, I've always like considered myself a writer. When I was in elementary school, I would make books. You could buy, or maybe you don't know, but at my school, you could buy these like hard cover, plain white, blank white pages on the inside, these like books, and then create your own book. And so as young as like second grade, I think I was like creating these stories and illustrating these pictures, which by the way, I can't draw. So it's hilarious to look at. Like I thought I was amazing. I think kind of like became my own little author at a young age. And then as I got older in college, like I always enjoyed writing papers and that kind of thing, like was like easy and fun for me versus like math was like that kind of stuff's not my thing. And then 2013, I was in my final year of college and I had